I'm going to tell you guys a story that's going to blow your mind. Imagine if this was you in this situation. Last year, there was a buyer, let's call him Tom, who was pre-approved for $400,000 on a single family house. He was going to put a 20% down payment, and his loan officer told him that the interest rate that he'd be paying was somewhere around 3%. So Tom was extremely happy because it was only going to cost him about $1,652 for principal and interest on a 30-year mortgage. So then Tom went out there and started looking for all types of houses within his range. But unfortunately, he got outbid on every single house and wasn't able to buy anything until now. But the good news is that the same house that Tom wanted to buy for about $400,000 is now going to cost him around $360,000. So great news for Tom, right? Yeah. So then he goes back to his loan officer and he says, I need to get a pre-approval letter for this house. But unfortunately now the loan officer says, well, you no longer can afford this house. And Tom is asking himself, but why? You told me I was pre-approved for $400,000. Now I found a house that's $360,000, and why is it that I can't buy it? He said, the reason why is because when I pre-approved you, the interest rate was 3%. Now interest rates are 7%. So Tom says, but wait a minute, how much more could it be if it's a much cheaper house? So check these numbers out. It was going to cost him $1,652 for principal and interest when the house was $400,000. Now it's going to cost him $2,388 for that same house, about 45% more, even though the house price has come down around 8%. Unbelievable, right? Well, unfortunately, that's the story that a lot of people have found themselves in. And most recently, we got the inflation numbers, which surprised everyone because we were expected to have a much higher CPI read than what we actually had. We actually got a 7.7 inflation read, which we all know is probably a bunch of baloney, versus the 7.9%. So let me explain to you what that means. So from this time last year to today, the government's telling us that everything, once you factor it in, including food, shelter, energy, everything is up about 7.7%. Now, we were expected to be about 7.9%, and last month we were at 8.2%, right? Just numbers that the government gives us. But out of that number, shelter, which is considered real estate, is up 6.9%. Now, I know you guys are probably scratching your head and thinking, 6.9%? Real estate has gone up a lot more than 6.9%. Yeah, well, they have funny numbers to go about it, but let's just work with their numbers. 6.9% is what it's gone up. But that's not the number that I'm really so concerned about, because we all know, and we've all experienced it, that housing, if you're renting right now, you know your rent probably went up 15%, 20%, some people 100% in just the course of 1 year. But what's really staggering is that just month over month, from October, just in the month of October, the price of real estate is up 0.8%, which is the most it's ever been up in 32 years. But a lot of people are left wondering, why is it that it's costing more money for shelter, which includes renting and owner's equivalence rent, which basically means if you own your home, it'd be like you renting the home from yourself. So whatever you're paying in your mortgage is what you'd be paying in rent. So needless to say, it encumbers everyone. It's up way more than everything else. And the reason why is because even though housing prices have come down, the cost of owning has gone up so much when you factor in the higher interest rates and higher insurance costs now that not a lot of people are talking about. So when you factor those in, it's unbelievable. Some people are seeing, like the example I gave you earlier, 45% increase in their payments, all the way up to 70% increase in their payments, depending on how big your loan amount is. So now let's talk about that example that I gave earlier with Tom. I didn't just use some hypothetical numbers. The 400,000 number is actually 392 is what the average home price was just in June of this year, which is crazy because now it's 359,000. So it's come down about 8%. Not a huge amount, and we're going to talk about how much it could possibly come down and what I think it'll come down towards the end of this video. But before I get to that part, I just want to explain to you that the cost of financing real estate now has gone from an average of a 3% interest rate, which we were at about a year ago, to now it's hovering around 7 and even 7.5% in that range, and it can even go much, much higher. But some people would think to themselves, well, that means that it's costing twice as much to finance a home. Well, not exactly. It depends. There's a lot of factors involved depending on the size of the loan. It could be anywhere between, like I mentioned earlier, 70% to about 40, 50% more that it'll cost you to finance that same home. So a lot of people are finding themselves not being able to afford a home at this point. So the resulting to renting, right? Renting is always going to be the backup idea, because who would want to buy a house just to figure out a year later, hey, listen, your house is worth $100,000 less? And it could be possible that can happen again. So let's look at some historical information. I found this chart online which basically shows the affordability of housing over the course of the last 30 years. And right now we are at the lowest affordability for homeowners since we have seen since 1986. Now it's crazy, right? Yeah, we're at an extreme number right now, but we were also at an extreme number just a year or two ago when home affordability was very low because interest rates were in the 2s and 3s, which meant that home prices were also very cheap, and that caused home prices to skyrocket, obviously. So right now, as I show you this chart on the screen right now, you can see that right now we're in an extreme range. Now, in order for us to return to some kind of a normal range, we would have to get interest rates to come down, or home prices to come down, or maybe a combination of both. So I'm going to give you some examples right now where we need to be in order to see more of a normalized market. So let's look at that example that we used early on. The payment that Tom was going to have was going to be $1,652 for a $400,000 house, or $392,000 house. Now his payment on a $359,000 house was going to be $2,388. So let's cut it right down the middle and say that the payment should be somewhere around $2,000 for it to be an average payment where we should be, where it's more normalized. In order for us to get down to a $2,000 payment on a monthly basis, we would have to have one of three scenarios. The first scenario we would be looking at is home prices need to come down and we keep the same interest rates. So in order for home prices to give us a $2,000 month mortgage payment, we would need to come down another 15% down to about $300,000 average home sales price across the United States, which is very possible. And I've seen it before in my career that home prices have come down that much. Now, all right, maybe home prices won't come down that much. Maybe some people watching this video think, no, we've already kind of rock bottom. We're going to go stabilize from here. Well, if you're in that camp, then we would have to get interest rates to come down. So right now, currently interest rates are somewhere in the field of 7.5%. So for us to get down to a $2,000 payment on that same $359,000 house, well, we would have to get down to a 5.5% interest rate, which is also very doable if buying yields cooperate with us and those types of things happen. But we don't know. We don't know what could happen. The third scenario is maybe a combination of both. Now, what would happen if we had that option? So for that to happen, we would have to get another 6% drop in home prices, which would bring us down to about $335,000, $330,000 in that range. So that's not horrible, but we would also need to see interest rates come down to about 6% on a 30-year fixed mortgage. That again would bring us into that 2,000 range. But what would happen if interest rates continue to climb up? What if we got the opposite of what we're waiting on? What if interest rates kept going up and we got into the double digits? Well, if that were to happen, guys, I'm telling you, all bets are off. We're going to definitely go lower than 15% on home prices. We might see 25, 35, maybe even 50% home prices dropping, because what's happening right now is that home prices are trying to catch up with affordability, because a home can only be worth what someone's willing to pay for it. And if people continue to slow the roll and not buy homes as quickly as they used to because there's less demand due to high financing, well, if sellers really want to sell their homes, they're going to have to get more aggressive, and they're going to have to start selling for less and less and less until they hit that point where they owe as much as what the home is worth. So in that case, what they may have to look into is called a short sale. Now, some of you might be familiar with the term. Some of you have maybe not are familiar with the term. It's basically asking the bank to give you a short payoff. And in that case, you would ask the bank, hey, bank, listen, I know I owe you $300,000, but the market's kind of weak right now, and it looks like I can only get about $250,000 for the house. So then what's going to happen is the bank's going to send out an appraiser. They're going to value your home, and they're going to say, okay, we've done our analysis, and it looks like your home is worth about $250,000. So in that case, the seller would get a short payoff, and they'd be able to sell their home for $250,000, which means that then they'd walk away. And if all remains the same with all the way the short sales have happened in the past, the seller wouldn't have to pay back that difference, that shortfall, and they would also get an exemption on their taxes for that amount, which means that they wouldn't have to pay that as well. And right now, the exemption is up to $1 million on primary residences. Hey, but that could all change. But if we do continue to see home prices continue to drop down, you're going to see a lot more short sales hit the market soon. And if that's the kind of market that we end up getting, you want to make sure that you're prepared. And the reason I'm telling you that is because I am working on a program that's going to knock your socks off. It's called the Auction Master Program. What it's going to entail is all the information and all the experiences I've had over the last 20 years in real estate, especially the experience that I have in auctions, sheriff sale auctions, public auctions, online auctions. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because a lot of other ways of getting real estate are very difficult. So for instance, if you're going to start prospecting, sending letters out, posting bandit signs, like all the things that normally investors do, it's a very difficult way, a very inconsistent way of getting inventory. But if you're capable of navigating sheriff sale auctions and online auctions, well, that's kind of like a spigot that really never turns off, because once banks start foreclosing on properties, these properties have to go through a process which is called a sheriff sale auction, where it goes to the county steps and you could bid on these properties. Now, it's different in every county, so you're going to want to make sure that you're well aware of that. So the program that I'm creating is going to teach you how to be able to navigate those. Now, the people that normally go to sheriff sales are what are called the good old boys, and they don't want people to know how these things operate. Why do I tell you this? Because I experienced it firsthand. When I first started going to sheriff sales, people would try to scare me out of there and overbid me just to not come back. But I stayed there and became one of the probably top, if I would say so myself, one of the most educated people in the space. And on top of that, I also became a trainer and instructor for auction.com, which allowed me to then teach what I knew to thousands and thousands of investors. If you guys want more information on that program, that's going to be ready very soon, and you're going to want a discount, a 30% discount on what the program is going to go for, you want to make sure to use the sign up down below. I'll leave it down there for you guys to sign up. But just to warn you guys, the program is almost ready, and when it is ready, that discount is going to disappear. So if you guys are into that, and on top of that, you're also going to get a community to speak to, that you guys are going to be able to obviously communicate with each other and communicate with me. And additionally, we're also going to have a monthly meetup call, which is going to allow you guys to ask me questions directly. So don't miss it, guys. The link will be down below. Back in 2008, before 2008, I want to tell you that the story goes like this. Someone asked me what I thought about home prices and real estate prices. And I was very naive at the time, because I got into real estate in 2003. So I rode that first initial wave, and it just felt like, this will never end, because they're not making any more land. And that's exactly what I would tell people. But I was very, very wrong. And what I experienced from then on was almost disbelief. And I couldn't acclimate myself to really understand and take advantage of the situation. But I am more than prepared right now. I am so prepared for this next crash to come, and so should you. And when I first experienced it back in 2008, it took me a few years to even realize that there was opportunity everywhere. So I want all of you, if you're thinking about becoming an investor, or if you're a buyer and you're looking to maybe buy, or you're thinking that maybe that's your 5-year goal, whatever the case may be, I'm telling you guys right now, there is going to be huge opportunity coming up in the next few years. So the last thing that I want you to do is don't listen to all the negativity that you're going to see on the media, on the news, and if that's consistently what you're hearing and getting, turn that stuff off and make sure that you listen to more stuff like this, or people who are educated in the space. That way you can learn how to take advantage of these opportunities, because like Warren Buffett says, the only time that you should be worried about being greedy is when everyone else is being fearful. When there's blood on the streets, that's when you need to attack. So if you guys enjoyed that, let me know. Also check out the next video right here. I'll see you guys over there in just a few seconds. Thank you for watching. I love you, and I'll see you next time.